Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Android. I'm your host Ashley Esqueda, and hey look, the Google person that I had promised a couple weeks ago, you made it. I'm so excited.
Nice to be here.
And this is Dominic Mazzoni. He is the creator of Ringdroid, and which is our app of the week. So, and you'll be here with us the whole show. So, really appreciate having you. And as always, my co-hosts.
We are here. We
Mark
would not
Jeffrey.
be anywhere else.
Yep. And Jeff Ammons. Thanks for you guys have coffee, like you're so laid back there.
It's like it's a talk show or something.
I feel like this is the view, like for Android. It's weird. Oh, thanks, Crypto Venom. He says we love Android in the chat room. We do too. So obviously, I feel like we're going to talk about like a new phone every single week because at the rate that they're releasing different handsets, like obviously the big news this week was the Droid Incredible, the world's worst kept secret in mobile, finally announced. HTC and Verizon finally got out there and said, all right, it's real. All the leaks that you saw, the pictures you saw, it's exactly what it is. We're looking at Android 2.1 with Sense, and it's a little customized HTC for what I've heard.
Yeah.
It's got the 1 gigahertz, which is now sort of becoming the bar at which phones are now entering the market. 1 gigahertz Snapdragon processor. They've got a friend stream for Flickr, Facebook, and Twitter. We're looking at Leap View for quick access to all 7 of your home screens on Android. 8 megapixel camera, dual LED flash, really nice.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome.
AMOLED screen.
Very nice.
Very pretty.
Very pretty
Optical joystick. They're now switching over to the optical stuff. Integrated GPS, proximity sensor, all that stuff. So I have to admit, I was wrong. I was so wrong last week.
We showed last week. We basically
and I said this can't be this looks like the Evo.
You thought it was an Evo that was like retouched up or something.
Yeah, that was like a little smaller, and I was just like, well, I think it's the Evo, but I was wrong.
In fact, it was in fact the phone.
It was the Incredible. I was expecting to look more like the Desire, and so from what I had heard.
Right.
So, but I was wrong. Is it mea culpa?
Yeah, it happens every once in a while. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it happens. And it's got the red battery and very Verizon. Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. So.
Not AT&T, so we
nope.
like that.
Yeah, no, it's not on the AT&T network.
I had to get a little dig on it, my Sholy dig on the AT&T.
AT&T, I know. It's not necessarily Apple. Like it's just AT&T's network is just really, it's just not there.
Horrific.
It's horrendous. I mean, it's just bad.
Word for it.
So, but you know, the thing that surprises me about this phone is usually we see phones announced months in advance of their release, and this one comes out in 2 weeks. You can go pick it up on the 29th of April.
That's
that's kind of shocking for me. I was expecting a couple months lead time or something like that.
Right.
I kind of prefer it this way, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay,
although,
so you
I mean,
prefer it this way.
they have been leaking stuff for the last 2 months or whatever. I don't know how long it's been.
But so you prefer the official announcement and a quick engagement,
pretty much,
so to speak, before you marry a phone.
Yeah. Don't you think the leaks generate better buzz anyway?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because then you get so many different versions of the rumors, and people are trying to track down which ones are true.
People are talking about.
I yet to hear anyone admit that they're actually leaking things on purpose in order to generate the buzz, but it seems to be working anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to do in every other industry.
Do you think this speed is related to the fact that there's so much competition in the Android space for handsets?
I think so.
I think so too. I mean, that's
and also,
I'm guessing, but that's what I would think of that.
With the Evo coming up, I think a lot of, it's in the same family, but I definitely think that in terms of releases, phones are being released so quickly right now that it's just a matter of, I think that the idea is to keep the excitement going for 2 weeks as opposed to letting it die off after a couple of months.
Right.
And so, because now, when this got announced yesterday, I had 6-7 people text me, friends, good friends, going, "Oh my gosh, this phone is so amazing! I'm gonna go get one." The second, because I had a friend who was like, "I'm thinking about getting a Droid," and I'm like, "No, just wait. I just read the signs, read between the lines here." Well,
that's an interesting point because once you get one of these phones, you're not gonna get another one for a while.
Right.
Yeah. You're not just gonna keep buying them unless you're Jason Calacanis, in which case you'll buy 5 of them the next day.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, most people will they'll get the phone, they will not upgrade it, they'll just hang on to it for a year.
A year at least.
Yeah.
With Sprint, they have, if you're a Premier member, you get the $150 rebate every year.
Yeah.
And so, which is great. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sprint.
That is pretty cool.
I'm a big fan of that. But a lot of places, up in Canada, it's 3 years. People have to wait 3. Their contracts are for 3 years for a phone,
Canadians.
which is insane. Like who?
Yeah, but
I
that's
couldn't
Canada.
wait that long, like to upgrade my phone. Like I need a new phone. Like I feel like I need a new phone every 6 months. My fiance's always like, "Oh, you're so obsessed with phones. Like you always want a new one."
Well, you only have to show about.
I know. I'm like, it's all about like I love the idea of getting like I like to upgrade stuff all the time.
Yep.
So, but I definitely think that again the magic price point, $199 after rebates.
Yeah.
That's the sweet spot I think right now.
So it's
going
to be a huge hit, you think?
Huge.
Bigger than the Nexus One, you think?
You know what? I actually feel like HTC took a lot of wind out of the Nexus One sales because of, like, I know that we talked about last week how a lot of people were saying that there were some problems, and I know that there's been a screen issue. Like they're saying, like it's sort of reversed, the axis reversed on some of the touch screens. Have you had any?
No,
You have a
any
Nexus
problems
One,
at all,
so.
yeah. But
If you look at the sales, it's like if you compare iPhone to Droid, it's actually they're pretty comparable recently. But then you look at Nexus One's actually very small in terms of sales.
Yeah.
So really, the Droid is the one that we should.
Yeah, like Droid has been the one
to-
that's gotten the big marketing push.
Yeah.
I mean, Nexus One is so different. I mean, with Google selling it directly
Yeah,
and without
definitely.
sort of the presence in all of the stores. I mean,
Right.
still most people are buying their phones by walking into a Verizon
brick-and-mortar
store,
store,
a T-Mobile
right.
store,
Yep.
and that's really what's driving the sales. So I don't expect. I think that Nexus One might be just like way ahead of the game in terms of its sales model, but Google doesn't seem to care about like actual numbers. I mean, it's the Android platform is far more important. The Nexus One is an example of a great phone, but there's so many others to choose from too.
Well, and I think that a mainstream user who's not exactly at the highest end of tech, who just doesn't really read like tech websites, tech blogs,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm on top of like every tech website and I'm like, I know what phones are coming out, I know what I want.
Yeah.
But like, you know, somebody like, for example, my mom is not going to know about the Nexus One. Like she's not going to know to go online and look for one. She's going to say, well, I'm going to go into my store and I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to play with it. I want to, you know, I want a tour of it by an associate.
I do start to worry that so many of the Android phones look so similar that how is an average user like that going to know? I mean, maybe if they're smart enough to realize that they want Android, that's great. Are they going to know which one they want based on, you know, are the features that are advertised like 8 megapixel camera versus 5? Is that why somebody should be deciding to go for one phone over another?
Right, and that's sort of a, like, I mean, if you want to do photography, like I had heard about a guy who I guess is doing, not Android related, but he's using his Palm Pre to do landscape portraits of nature. Like that's his like professional photography. Like he's doing this whole like movement thing where he does these like amazing landscape portraiture of stuff. But I mean, like if you're doing something like that, I could see where it would come in handy, but I don't know. Like for a user to come in and be like, well, this one has 5, this one has 8. I'll take the one with 8. Like it seems. I mean, that's something that would not surprise me to hear inside a store.
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Really, just the point is that there are often a lot of differences between the phones, but they're not quite as apparent sometimes. It's a lot harder to dig in and see which one is really a stronger phone overall.
Yeah. Like when I showed up to buy my Droid at the Verizon store, I went on the first day, and I just walked in the store. I'm like, I'll take a Droid, and the guy's like, do you want to like look at it, play with it? I'm like, I've done
Like,
so
no.
much research on this thing. Just give it to me.
yeah.
And so it's like that's kind of a testament to how people actually shop for phones. Like they're gonna go in, they're gonna play with it, they're gonna see what it looks like, and they're gonna make a decision based on that.
They'll leave. They'll come back a week later. You know, like that's the no, but that's the same. I have the same problem. Like where you walk in and people like they're shocked that you don't want to actually just try it. Like I walked in, I was like, like when I got my phone last year, I was like, that's what I want. I'll take it. And they were like, you don't want to look at any of it. Nope, that's what I want. I've done plenty of research.
Yeah.
I've been waiting. I've been reading blogs for weeks and weeks and weeks about this phone. I'm ready. Give it to me right now. Like that's it.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely think I like in terms of marketing, like I really think that you're going to see the Incredible get tons of marketing, like the Droid did.
Yeah.
And because it's the Droid Incredible, it's actually the Droid Incredible now. It's not the HTC Incredible. And
Really? So will they? Do you think they'll market it towards guys again, the same way they did with the Droid?
you know, I was talking to a friend about that because she was saying she's like, it's just so ugly. Like it's again, like she's like, I don't like the form factor, and I think that barely they're now sort of getting into this. Like I think that just from the renders and the picture that they have online, I think that they're getting to a more unisex phone, like the iPhone, very unisex.
Yep.
And it has the same. It's very reminiscent of that iPhone factor where it's like either a man or woman
Not
can
bad.
use
We
it.
went 15 minutes without talking about the iPhone.
I know, God, we went like 15 whole minutes. But I definitely think that like they're saying on the Verizon store, there's already accessories like case accessories that have like gradients on them, and I think they're going to go for a more like, here's a unisex phone, customize it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would actually be smarter, I think.
And I think that that's a really intelligent thing for them to do. Like,
Yeah, I
somebody
agree.
told me on Twitter this week, I'd mentioned the Droid Aris, and he was like, I work in a Verizon store, and every time a guy buys a Droid Aris, I told him they bought the girl phone.
It's like the Miata phone, isn't it?
It makes me laugh every time I see that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, you're like, it is kind of like, it's a little bit curvier, like
Yeah.
it's softer. So
Yeah, you don't want to be, if you're a dude, you don't want to have that phone, sorry.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting how they described the Incredible. Like, if you look at the whole thing with, there was like a press release that came out for it, and it was like, I forget where I saw this. It might have been on like Fandroid or Android Central, and then basically they described the user of the Incredible as a power connector, which
Power connector.
yeah, and they have this like this round sort of graph, and it has like tech, business, media, and something. Like it's like a circle, and it's like way up on the top left, and it's basically the description they use of a power connector is they work to live. They're at meetings, openings, dinners, out for drinks. They need constant access to work, but without being branded a suit. And play is the badge that they want to cultivate and wear. So interesting sort of, like, they're very specific about who's using this phone, which is basically me. Like,
Yeah.
like I read that and I was like, that's me. Like, that's exactly, I work so that I can play.
Yeah.
Like, I can do fun
But you
stuff.
enjoy what you do, though.
I do. God, I love this.
Yeah.
I love doing
I know you
this.
do.
Who wouldn't want to
This
come hang out
is-
with us?
I know. I love coming and hang out with you every
Yes, that's your
week,
job, to
and,
hang
like,
out with us.
it's a great, like, God, if someone told me I'm going to pay you to hang out with two cool guys, I'll be like, done. So, yeah, and I know I really enjoy it.
Dominic.
And Dominic, yeah. I get to meet cool new people every week and talk to them about developing apps. And, you know, and I thought it was really interesting. Last thing I'll mention is my dad had said when I was talking to him when The Incredible got announced yesterday,
Yeah.
he was like, where did this company come from? Like, he just got a Hero, and he just upgraded. My mom just got a Moment. And so he's like, where did HTC even come from? Like, they just came out of nowhere.
They have
with
just
these
like
amazing phones. Like, they're just, it's all use first, and then everything else later.
Well, didn't they have some phones for a while that were actually pretty popular, but just not HTC branded?
I think they had a Touch that was on Sprint for a while, and that
but
was
Windows
pretty
mobile
popular.
phones.
Yeah, they were Windows.
Yeah. I mean, so like people might have had HTC and just not even thought about the name, or they weren't getting like first billing. It wasn't HTC written everywhere.
Right.
Well, the first I heard of them was when Google kind of knighted them, you know what I mean, for the Nexus 1.
And then they
Check
rebranded
it out
and
on
did the
Wikipedia.
quietly brilliant, you know, tagline, and really got out there and was like, we are HTC. Like, it's no longer, well, we'll just hide in the background, and, you know, but I just think it's really cool that, like, even somebody like my dad, who's not necessarily, like,
Yeah, that's interesting.
super into tech, is just like, where'd this company come from? Like, they just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
See, Wikipedia says they were founded in 1997.
Yeah.
And they used to do Windows Mobile. In 2009, they shifted to Android.
Yeah.
So it's possible they always had good hardware, and they're just now shifting
Now that they're
to
shifting
a good
to
set of software, and so
Right.
people are hearing
Yeah.
it from them.
No.
Yeah. So I definitely think that we're going to see, obviously, The Incredible poised to do battle with the Evo this summer. I don't know how much you can really do battle in terms of 4G versus 3G, but for
Yeah.
most of the country, they don't have 4G yet. So I think that even if it was, I mean, it's a bigger screen for the Evo. It's a 4.3 inch, which is huge. Like, I didn't realize how big that was until I went and saw the HD2 Touch. Like, I saw that and I was just like, oh my God, this screen's gonna be 4.3 inch. This is insane. Like, it's giant. So, yeah, I'm curious to see how well and how hard the marketing pushes and how
Yeah.
well it does with the Droid Incredible. So, good job, HTC. High fives on that. Like, looking forward to more. Like, I mean, I just really see like some amazing things coming out. And I've heard that they're working on an Android tablet as well.
That's what I'm interested in. I mean, we all got our iPads now.
Yeah. And now that
Well, some
Apple
of
has
us
made
don't.
the iPad and the concept of a tablet a household item, like
Yeah.
it's, I mean, they've basically opened Pandora's box in terms of.
It makes you want, I mean, I've had an iPad now for a week and a half, and already I want more.
It's changed your life.
Yeah, and in some ways it has. I mean, I would say it's changed my behaviors in some ways.
Well, was it the president of was it Iceland? The one with the volcano. He's been like running the country from New York from his iPad.
Is that
there was
so?
an article
I didn't
about
know
that
that.
today.
Really?
About how he was like sitting at.
Is there an app for that?
There must be an app for that. Like
Dictator
it's a
1.0?
secret app. Like some crazy like
Move the
volcano
army here.
management. It's crazy. Like
The volcano was an accident.
Volcanoizer.
Yeah, I can't believe. Oh, the president of Norway. Okay, there we go.
okay.
One of our illustrious, intelligent
President of
readers.
Norway.
Yeah, president of Norway, dude, because he can't get back to his country because of all the volcanic ash in the air. So he's been running the country from his iPad, like doing that, and like check his emails and stuff, and then
He's just watching Netflix.
Not
He's
voting.
I
For
know
that guy.
exactly. It's
the
just like
volcano thing. Forget about it.
so, but yeah, and then we have somebody giving us a whole bunch of information on HTC, fastest growing companies and one of the fastest growing companies in the mobile sector. Remarkable recognition, absolutely. So just really good stuff. They have that app. I think it's called Pocket
God.
Very nice. Yeah, good.
Pocket dictator.
Exactly. Well, you know what? We're switching it up a little bit this week. We're not going to wait to do the news. We're going to give you your news right up front. So, Mark, let's do the news.
Okay, so the first story of the day from Fandroid, P-H-A-N-D-R-O-I-D, Fandroid, that's spelled that way. Android market is now in 46 countries. So according to the App Store Analytics Group Distimo, which has a little octopus logo, I think, that's what I'm thinking of. The Android market has found its way into 46 countries, which is 25 more than just a few weeks ago. So I remember we were talking about this, a couple weeks ago, actually.
Huge.
This is a huge jump. I mean, I was like, really? Is that right? So among the countries, Brazil, well, that should be huge for them, I would think, right? Thailand, Israel. The number of countries with access to paid apps has grown to 13. So Australia has joined. So I guess it wasn't just Canada that didn't have paid apps. It seems to be a problem in several
It
countries.
takes a long time to get international paid app markets, like from what I've seen.
Why is that? I just don't understand that.
It's puzzling.
I'm not sure. You know, maybe we should bring in somebody.
Why
who
is
will,
that
like, talk
hard? I
about
mean,
that.
like, really?
Do you have any idea why that would be? Like, just out of curiosity. I
don't.
mean, just.
But I think that once you're talking about, I think there's legal issues involved.
Well, no, there are, but I just don't understand why other countries, why there's so many legal hurdles involved with buying virtual goods, I guess,
I don't think that it's necessarily that there's any impossible hurdles, but maybe it just takes a lot of effort, and it's a question of how many different countries you want to work on at a time.
Is it because it's on a phone as opposed to on a desktop, do you think? You think it's because the carriers are involved and there's regulations and stuff like that? That would be my guess. If I had to guess.
Taxes might be a big obstacle.
No, but taxes are, I don't know. I mean, for online stuff, I think we're
VAT or-
past the tax stuff, I would think.
Yeah.
But I think it's because telcos are involved. That's
It's got to
I'm
be, because
guessing.
you can download something from any country you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the telco. I think that's
There's
probably
regulation
the
that
big,
they have to,
yeah,
like,
the regulations
untangle.
and like even in. I mean, the one thing that we talked about last week was in the Android market in South Korea, they took away all the games
Right.
because they weren't being approved. They have to each individually be approved, and so Google decided then we'll just pull games from the South Korean Android market because it was just easier.
Yeah.
And that way they wouldn't get in trouble. And so I think that in terms of that, like different countries have different regulations also for telco, but not only for telco, but for other things. So they might just say, well, no R-rated apps, no
Right.
X-rated apps, whatever. And so that also takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
maybe.
I know Australia has a bunch of regulations on software, so
Okay.
like
They're trying to
it's
add a
pretty
lot more.
horrendous. Yeah.
Really?
It's pretty ugly.
There's been a lot of news about Australian internet filtering, but I think it's still sort of a hot debate area down there. It's people who want to regulate content on the internet more than is really possible or is just the norm anywhere else. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. I'm sure that would slow things down.
To keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
I did not know that, so thanks.
Yeah.
I'm like, now I want to.
Mainly with games, but they're also doing internet censor or talking about internet censor.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. Next story. 38,000 apps in the market. Nexus One is bringing in profits.
Yeah,
So Nexus One is
we were
actually
talking about the. They did say they were It is
Because
profitable.
Google, they had their earnings call, I think, yesterday or today. It must have been yesterday. So Google's earnings are up for this year. What a surprise.
They're doing very well.
5.06 billion this past quarter.
Quarter. I love it.
The 19% increase. This was a 19% increase over last year, with Android being a significant part of it. I'm trying to see here how significant.
I love this part of this news article that says that basically from last September to now, the Android market has grown 28,000 apps.
That's insane.
Since last September, which is they had 10,000 then, and now they have.
Yeah, there's very little doubt that marketplace is every bit as vibrant as Apple's.
Yeah,
even though the number of apps are lower, it's catching up very fast.
Well, but I mean,
because people started writing farting apps for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's true too.
It doesn't really mean I don't think
Free
it necessarily
apps,
means much about quality.
Yeah.
I mean, back when they were under 10,000, there were some amazing apps, and you know, I mean, there are more and more good apps all the time. I think there are more sort of uniquely amazing apps probably still for the iPhone, but it's hard to name a category where there aren't like outstanding apps for any area of productivity or gaming or something like that. There are good apps.
Have you programmed for both devices?
I've done Mac development. I haven't done iPhone development.
Okay, but you play around with Cocoa, I imagine.
Yeah.
Objective-C. So, would you get, based on what you know, is it easier on one platform versus the other, or what would you think?
No, I don't. I think for some people it might be. It depends a lot on what you're trying to write. I mean, Cocoa's a great API. Android's a great API. I think that both have strengths and weaknesses. I'm the kind of developer where the language and the environment, they're just tools, and if they make it possible, then I'll get it done, and it doesn't necessarily
really
matter.
Feel one is better than the other.
No, I don't think inherently. I do think that they both have some significant weaknesses, and I hope they both improve. But they're very different.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of, I mean, I think most productivity and sort of interesting apps, like, you know, if you want like a really good Twitter client or something like that, I mean, both APIs are equally good for creating something like that. It's just a question of resources because they are completely different. You can't share any code in common. That's the main thing. But you
can't develop for both platforms easily.
No, and Apple just made it even harder. Some people were trying to bridge the gap. Doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. But honestly, they're both great platforms, and so if you get someone who learns to do Android development, someone who learns to do iPhone development, or even someone who learns to do both, it's not like there's any inherent difficult challenge to any one particular one. But then I think there are other apps that really sort of push one particular platform to the limits. There are things you can only do on an iPhone currently. There are things you can only do on Android currently. And I think those are particularly interesting, really sort of pushing things in new directions. And both platforms have lots of really cool things like that.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool.
The other bit of this news article was that the Nexus 1 is actually turning a profit. There was some debate over the business plan of selling an unsubsidized phone through the website, and it appears that Google was right, after all.
Yeah.
So,
I think, you know, like you were saying, it was a small amount, but I think in terms of when you're selling it unsubsidized, you're not dealing with carriers who are taking cuts of what you're making off the phone, who want to do rebates and all this other stuff. I mean, I think obviously you can make it, you don't have to sell nearly as many to make it a profitable business venture.
Well, just to be clear, Apple is selling the Nexus 1 with the carrier rebate if you want. I don't know the breakdown. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that really one of the key markets for that. I could be wrong. I think it's really key for developers, because for developers, you might have one phone, but I mean you're locked into your 2-year contract just like everyone else.
Yep.
Right.
Maybe 1 year on Sprint, but if you're a developer, you have the budget if you're going to be making money on it, and you don't want to be locked into a contract, but you want a phone that works.
Just buy it
you want it unlocked. You want to be able
Done.
to swap SIM cards. Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that's probably the most concise and applicable explanation as to like why a lot of people would go with an unlocked phone. Like for development, I think that makes the most sense.
That's perfect sense there. I think that there's also probably a lot of other people who want an unlocked phone, but it's still really hard, I think, in the US to you can't just walk into, I mean, try walking into an AT&T store and say, I just want a plan, I don't want a phone.
right. Yeah,
now, they won't
understand what you're saying.
You can do this in Europe, you can do it in Mexico, you can do it in Asia. I mean, almost anywhere else, you can just walk in and they'll hand you a SIM card. But you can't do that here. T-Mobile is the closest right now, but it's not exactly that easy. But I mean, they'll actually charge you less if you don't want a phone, if you already have a phone. But I don't know how easy that is in most stores. I'll bet most salespeople will still look at you
Start
funny.
crying.
Like, what?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking to me about. You don't want a phone. You just want a plan. I need to go get my manager.
I think if
I'll be
anyone
right
wants
back.
to do that, the best thing to do would be to bring in your phone and you say, "I already have this phone.
Right.
Could you just?"
Can I
they
put
might
a plan on
understand. Yeah,
this?
that
Yeah.
would make sense. I'm not trying to knock the salespeople. It's just that's not the way it works right now.
Yeah.
And I hope that the Nexus One will start to change that.
Yeah.
I hope that we'll start seeing more phones that you can just buy unlocked. And I'd love to
just
buy a
say,
plan.
hey.
I'd
Yeah.
love to not be locked in if I don't want to. I'd love to try Verizon for a month and see how the reception is at home.
Yeah.
I mean, how else can I do that?
Sprint, I know Sprint has something similar to that, but you have to get a Sprint phone, which is they do their 30-day money back, which we talked about, where they're saying we'll give you 30 days with the service, 30 days, and then we will literally refund every penny you paid to us, like no questions asked. If you hate the service,
Right.
If you're unhappy with it for any reason, we'll give you.
I'd love to hear stories from people if they've actually done that successfully.
As far as I've heard, it's like there's a couple people on like Consumerist. Like I think it was on Consumerist. I've heard a couple people say that it was pretty seamless. They just called and they went into the store and said, you know what, I just don't get service in my house. Like I think one person was talking about how they lived in mountains or hilly area or something like that, and she just said, I just didn't have very good service, and I
Yeah.
wanted to try it, but I just, I took it back and I said, I just don't have service, and so they refunded everything. Which
That's really good to hear.
yeah, no, which I would like to see all of the carriers do that, because I
Yes.
think that's fair. I mean, I don't want to get locked into a 2-year contract and then go home. Like I get great service at the Verizon store, and then I go home to my little podunk town out by Palm Springs, and it's like, well, what do you mean I don't have any service out here? Like
Yeah.
I got to take my phone. Well, sorry, you're locked in for 2 years.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, but did you happen to notice in that article the Google saying that they're seeing Android itself is seeing 60,000 device activations
I did
a
see
day?
that. That was pretty amazing.
That's 60,000 a day. Like that's. I mean, I understand that across carriers we've got multiple devices and
Yeah.
all sorts of different things, but
And that's worldwide too.
Yeah.
that's still great.
It's total per day. Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
That's so good. Like I'm excited about that.
Okay. So, you know what I'm excited about is the next article where it says Flash 10.1 is coming to Android in the second half of 2010. So now we'd expected it sooner. They had basically, everyone sort of thought it was going to happen a little bit sooner. But Adobe didn't make their deadline for their beta at last year's Max conference. But they are promising by the second half of this year. Of course, absent from that announcement was Apple. No surprise there.
No love between the two.
Yeah, not at all. So the question I have is, so we talked a little bit, and I guess it was somebody in the chat room said, oh, it's an unfair question. Is it easier to develop on the iPhone or an Android device? Which is probably true. I mean, it depends on what language you're familiar with or if you're equally familiar with both.
Right.
Once Flash appears on the Android device and people can make Flash applications, I would posit to you that it is a lot easier because there's an army of Flash developers out there. And
with Air
they're not programmers,
coming out.
right?
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean,
Oh, that's true.
But
I'm
you're right. There's
Yeah.
some people who create great Flash animations without necessarily a lot of programming. A lot of Flash is all programming.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
everything
true, too.
from scratch. It runs the whole gamut. But it's true. I mean, if you're already a Flash developer, if you already have, and Flash already has sort of an ecosystem of tools and community and all that. So yeah, if you already know Flash, you already have some cool things in Flash, you could port that to Android just like that, no question.
Right. And now, what do you?
Works out pretty good.
Now-
And with Air,
Yeah.
especially with Air coming out,
Yeah.
and having it be.
Well, the point is
multi-platform.
that suddenly there's a lot more. There's a much larger base of developers.
You've just all of a
Matured
sudden
base of
absorbed
developers.
a large amount of
Yes.
exactly. I mean, just by having it available
Yeah.
as a development platform, you're just opening the door to a whole bunch of people who've been doing Flash for years and years and years, as opposed to people who are just starting with Android like a year ago.
Yeah.
I mentioned this to my friend who has an iPhone, and his response was, "I don't need Flash anyway." I'm like, you're in denial, man.
I just I'm
No,
like
you
I,
do need
I
Flash.
get
Yeah.
like I wonder about that because like I appreciate that HTML5 is I will give credit where credit's due. HTML5 is great, but like I see Flash everywhere on the internet, and so I can't imagine having like I'm excited about having Flash. Like it's been hard to not have it on a phone, but like once we have it, I'm gonna look at a phone without it as like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
this is.
Well, you got to admit though, you still go to some sites and you discover that the site is built in Flash,
Yeah.
and you cringe because you know that you're going to have to learn how to interact with their scroll bar.
Right.
And and
That's
so
true.
now on the one hand, like I really like the fact that, I mean, I think that it's been a good thing that mobile devices have gotten so powerful they can browse the web, but they haven't had Flash, because it's forced some websites to rethink whether they really should be building their entire website
Flash.
in Flash.
Right.
That's
It
true.
means they're harder to search, they're harder to use on a small device, they're harder to use on a slow computer.
But something like YouTube that uses Flash, I mean, the site itself is not Flash, but
Right.
YouTube is completely inaccessible for the most part
If you don't
from the
have
iPad or
Or an
the
app.
iPhone. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why they created YouTube apps. That's a special case, because I mean, video is I think a different case, and for video there are other methods. But I mean, for smaller video sites, there's no question you can't access those.
I think people will still realize, like, if their site's unusable from a mobile device because it's written in Flash, like, even if Flash is working, I think people will still realize they have to find something
Yeah.
else.
But I agree, though, as a device owner, I mean, there have been times when I've wanted to do something from my phone, from my browser, that I wouldn't normally want to do on a small device, but that's all I've got. I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to look up something on this website, and like, but there's Flash.
Like sometimes
Right.
I need to
do.
feed my fish bill fish, and I can't do that from my cell phone, and then they get
It's a
sick
problem.
and die.
It's a problem.
That's a huge problem. It's an epidemic.
It's a huge issue.
People can't feed their fish bill fish.
Flash,
Very
saving
sad.
lives.
Yeah.
Saving fish
Moving
lives.
right along.
I know exactly. Oh,
So Google is reportedly working on its own Android-based tablet to compete with the evil Jobs machine, which, yes, I did bring it with me.
well, you never go anywhere
Behold
without
the
it now.
iPad. Yes, I know.
I don't have anything
So-
against the iPad. Like, I think it's a great.
Touch it. It's like
I
you'll
know,
burn.
it's
Shh,
so
you're burning.
lovely. Like, I can feel the
Yeah.
power emanating from it. It's great. Like,
pretty great.
I use my friends all the time. Like, I like to mess around with it and
Which
stuff.
which case is this?
I don't know. It's when Apple tries to upsell you.
Okay.
So
I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Obviously, they succeeded.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not touching that.
I know he hates it.
Just
He
like, I
might
don't
burst
wanna
into
touch it.
flames.
No, I
if
didn't play with one the other day.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
skin's gonna start
So let me
boiling.
get to the Android version of this. So basically, Eric Schmidt was at a party here in Los Angeles, and apparently he was I don't know, talking
Yeah,
a little bit,
yeah, I heard about this.
and it sort of slipped out. He was talking to friends, and he said that they're working on an Android-based tablet, and they're experimenting with it in stealth mode with a few publishers, basically for books and magazines and content. So pretty much what the iPad is, right? So.
Which is pretty cool.
Which is
like
like
the Nexus
a super
One
Kindle.
version of a
Yeah.
tablet. Like, it's kind of neat.
So basically, the question is this real? So basically, like a Nexus One of tablets. So,
Yeah.
question is this real? Do you guys think this is really happening? I mean, I guess you can't really comment, but
Well, I work at Google, but I don't work on Android, so
Yeah.
I don't really have any insight on this.
Yeah. I say it's definitely. It would be surprising to me if it wasn't real.
yeah, I agree.
It would shock me because they've already shown, like especially with this week, they've already shown that they can be profitable with
Yeah.
the Nexus One, and so I think in terms of that, obviously the next step would be to go forward and make a tablet.
The interesting thing for me was that they're using Android versus the Chrome OS.
I
Yeah,
agree.
that is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they're doing that. Do you
Probably
have
it's
any
just-
insight into that? Why they would do that?
Well, the only thing I can say is that Google's publicly said that they believe in both Android and Chrome OS, and that they think that they're different. They're both interesting approaches, and that they're going to move forward with both for the near future.
That's really
Perhaps with a tablet, it's more like because of the Android marketplace, things like apps. Like, I mean, I think that the bar has been set very high
Yeah.
by Apple. I mean, it's not insurmountable, but they've done very well with what they have made.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of that's also an interesting point. Mike Full says Chrome OS equals full online. Android works offline too.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the interesting thing. Remember when Microsoft tried to they had their Windows product, and then when they moved down to Windows CE for mobile devices and sort of smaller devices, and it basically was a failure. I mean, when Windows CE was never really caught on the same way, the way Microsoft wanted it to. So maybe the idea of having right tool for the right job, the way Google's going about it, is the right answer. And
Do
they
you
don't wanna
think that
repeat-
one of the people in our chat room has said can't see why they won't merge them eventually. Do you think that would be something they would consider in a few
Merging
years?
operating systems is not the easiest thing in the world.
Maybe just ideas, like things that people really love about Chrome, being integrated into Android. As if Android really takes off and people don't exactly accept Chrome as much, people really like Chrome, and I think that.
Well, that's the cool thing about having some sort of variance in what you own and what you're working on is you can pull ideas from one to the other, and they're both open source, so it's going to happen.
So I think that both are Linux based. I think
that's true. So it may be easier to merge. I'm thinking.
Well, it depends on what you mean by merge. I mean, well, first of all, Chrome OS. The code is out there, but it hasn't really been released. There's no devices for sale running Chrome OS yet, so I think we have to kind of wait and see what happens once you actually see the real experience.
So I would assume that a Google tablet would run Flash.
Oh yeah.
Especially when it comes out. Now, Steve Jobs, when he was talking about the iPad.
No. Just no.
just hear me out. Yeah. He basically said no, but the reason why he said one of the things people love about the iPad is the battery life. The battery life is insane, and Jason was bringing this up on This Week in iPad.
10 hours?
Shows yesterday. Yeah, 10. It's 12. I've heard 12 and 13 hours, and I've experienced about that myself. So it's pretty impressive. Jobs said the reason why he didn't put Flash on Apple devices is because it'll chew the battery down, and it'll dramatically reduce the battery life. I would assume not just of Apple device. It's a flaw inherent in Flash. That's what he says.
Well, let me ask you this.
Is this BS or is this true?
Well, I think if you want to take that argument, I don't think you should play movies either.
Sorry, the microphone fell off.
Yeah,
make sure people can hear you.
Why don't we just kill the Wi-Fi? That'll save a lot of battery.
Exactly.
Here's my question. In terms of screens, that's running an LED screen.
Yeah.
When AMOLED comes out for tablets, why not? Is that going to substitute the battery life you're saving on the screen, then running Flash for the same amount of time?
Yeah, I think it's BS, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think that could be one reason, but I don't think that alone is a good enough reason. If users want to use up their battery by playing a movie or by playing a Flash game, and if it kills their battery, people should have the choice to do that.
I can't imagine carrying around a tablet all day without some plug somewhere. I've never, people always complain about battery life. Well, yeah, I know, and I think that's great. I can't, for me as a user, I can't imagine being out for so long without access to a plug. That battery life is never a problem for me. Even when the Pre came out last year and everyone's like, oh my God, this battery dies in 4 hours. It was terrible. The battery life was awful right at first. But then I was just I don't have, I'm always next to a plug. I should have one installed, on my arm. I'm always near a plug. And
do you use a car adapter?
Yeah.
Okay, because
I use a car adapter. I've got everything. I listen to Kevin Smith's Smodcast on the way down here every Friday, and it's just plugged in and it's charged. Anytime I go somewhere, it's plugged into my car. And I just can't imagine being in a position where I literally have unless I forget my cable.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in a position where I'm oh
international flights.
Maybe I guess international flight would probably be one, but then again, if you had a laptop, you could charge it from there. Don't a lot of international flights have the volt adapters and stuff?
Yeah. It's true. A lot of people might not have them. I think that there are a lot of people where battery life is a concern for various reasons.
Yeah, and I think that's people, college students walking
it costs.
around.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money if you want to get all the right adapters, and then you got to remember to take them with you. They take up space. For gadget freaks like us, we always have lots of extra power adapters. Also, if you always have the latest version of every gadget, and all your friends tend to have similar ones, you're like, hey, can I borrow your iPod charger? It's like, okay, can I borrow your, USB charger?
Okay.
There aren't that many you need, right? I know we do this all the time in the office, right? Everyone's trading adapters, to plug things in. But yeah, I think I know when I'm traveling, I think it is more of a problem.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna plow through a couple stories real quick here because I know we're starting to run short on time. HTC is also working on an Android tablet and 1080p video for smartphones.
Delicious.
Yes, so very nice. I don't think there's much to debate there, so let's move on.
Yeah.
the HTC Hero is going to update to 2.1 at the end of April.
For Europe.
Oh, is that
And
only
then
in
we're
Europe?
getting it 2 weeks later in the beginning of
Oh,
May.
man.
I saw that. They said,
We're more
oh, by
important
the
than
way,
Europe. We're America. What's up?
with the Legend and the design, like people are like really wanting 2.1. And
Yeah.
so they're releasing 2.1 at the end of April for UK and Europe. And then
By the way, I'm just joking about
a week and a half
Americans.
later.
We're all important. So
we're all
make sure I don't get hate
unique
mail.
snowflakes.
Exactly. And related to that, Android 2.1 is now on more than a quarter of Android phones. So I thought we were kind of last in line.
Yeah, I guess we're not.
I guess not.
All the phones that were launched with 2.1. We
Oh,
gotta
is that it?
include
Okay,
those
so it's
too.
not the updates. It's
Yeah.
okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Got
So,
it.
and actually, I think they were saying that like now there's only 3 fragmentations. There's like 1.5, 1.6, 2.1.
2.1.
Like
That sounds
201
good.
was
Sounds
like they talk about 201, but that was just the interim update for the Droid before it went
Yeah.
to 2.1.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Google buys UK visual search startup Plink, apparently to help improve Google goggles.
they're expanding this.
Yeah.
Huge. Have
So
you
they
seen
see-
Plink?
I've not seen Plink.
Really cool.
What
You
is
take
it?
a picture of a work of art,
Yeah.
and it will process it, and it will tell you all about it.
So you just like take it. You could be in the museum. You could be at the Getty. You're like, what's this?
That's what I was talking about like 3
This
weeks
was
ago.
painted
I'm like, we should
by-
have QR codes next to paintings.
Well, it's like QR.
Plink took my idea.
It doesn't work by QR codes, though, does it?
No, it's just you
it's
take a
visually
picture of the
recognized,
painting.
yeah.
Yeah. And it
Somebody
gives you
actually used my
information
phone
about it.
earlier. They wanted to use goggles because they were trying to figure out what a picture was on the internet.
That's
It
so
actually
cool.
worked. Yeah, I was
Wow,
shocked. I was
that's
like, it's not gonna work. He comes back. He's like, I'm buying a droid. Like, so it worked.
Wow,
Like, all
that's
right,
pretty
then.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But they talk
Does
about
sometimes.
in that story. They take about they say what's going to happen with it, and they do a comparison to Google Voice because they bought Grand Central, and now Google Voice is huge. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this has a lot of potential, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so next story. Your next Android device may be powered by Intel. Ding, 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 ding. Intel
Yeah,
inside.
interesting stuff.
So I guess the love affair with Windows is over, or with Microsoft, or at least what has been for a while. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
so they're Intel basically sees that the world is going Android, at least in some fashion, and looks like they want to get on the action. So
We'll see where that goes. We'll keep tabs on that, the Intel stuff. But I think that's
yes.
interesting.
But it's interesting they're headed that way. I guess it's just an announcement. Yeah, so they basically just announced that they've ported the Android mobile operating system to its smartphones on the Atom microprocessor, which is an Intel microprocessor.
Yep.
So, okay, Archos readies Generation 8 of Android tablets. What's the deal here?
It's a
You still
whole
can't buy Android tablets. So how is it
line
Generation 8?
of these
I was wondering about
tablets, and there's like they go from 3 inches to 10. Like
Yeah,
there's, and
how
it's all
about
the
just
same.
release one, dudes?
Yeah, like how
Dudes,
would we
I
just
just want
get
one.
one out?
I try to buy one every week, and I can't buy one.
There was a knockoff one in Asia. It was like it looked like an iPad, but it was running like some weird, like pirated. I can't say pirated version of Android, but it was like this weird modified version of Android.
Yeah.
It was really strange. So I saw that and I just laughed.
Yeah, just please release
So,
one.
yeah,
Just something,
I'll buy one.
anything.
Promise.
Yeah, he'll buy one. He's ready to shoot me with my iPad.
I totally messed up on this next story, the
so?
HTC device thing. I have the link, but I didn't put the story in there. That's my story from last time.
Yeah, I was like, what? That's all right. So, shall we move along to the next
Yeah,
one?
let's move on to the next one.
We can just fake it.
All right,
In a
so-
nutshell, you can go onto Facebook, and HTC wants you to help name their new device.
Right.
It's just a voting thing. They give you like 4 names.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, that's not.
that's not vote. That's not. So you get to vote. You don't get to
You have to
name.
vote on the next name.
Oh, that's lame.
So
I want to name it.
maybe next time they'll do a
We have some good ideas
poll.
for names.
Yeah,
And then send it to Stephen Colbert.
totally.
The
HTC Colbert. I would so buy that film.
You know, that would win. Like if Colbert got
It
up,
would totally win.
He would just
Stephen
like-
Colbert's my hero. He
Yeah,
got that
Colbert
bridge
would-
named after him, like treadmill and a space station. That's so
Nation,
great.
you want a Colbert.
Exactly, the
He would
HTC
absolutely do
Colbert.
All right, so I guess the last story, then we'll move along. Or do you want to talk about do you want to talk about the Bill Gurley?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about this. So there's an article that I ran across today, sort of last minute, so we don't have a Chiron for it or anything.
Yeah.
But Bill Gurley tweeted this. So Bill Gurley is a famous venture capitalist, well known for being brilliant And
I wish I was well known for being brilliant.
we're working on that. So, but Bill Gurley tweeted out when he tweets something, pretty much that means it's got heat, and it's hit the buzz meter is now it's officially over the line.
Lighten up, yeah.
So, there's this article about it says Android is evil, and
or is it?
Yeah. And I haven't had a chance to read this whole thing because it happened so fast right before we came in here. But I think you did, right?
I got most of it. I was able to scan through it. It's really interesting. They talk about how Android might be the most closed system in the history of open source.
Right. So it almost sounded like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory about Android.
But they make some good points. Like I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I agree, but because I disagree to a large extent. But there's some things that they talk about, like basically that the Android success has nothing to do with open source. That it's really owed to Apple in part.
As a reaction. We've made this point in the show like a bunch of times. People get mad at us for bringing it up.
Network operators and carriers and Qualcomm. So for the chipsets.
They would have never united all the disparate factions without
basically
Apple
cheaper alternative to the iPhone. Like Android, because it's open source, because Google did not take their code and say only one phone, only one carrier.
But that doesn't mean that Android is evil.
Yeah, that's what I was
say.
But they do make some points later on where they say like Android, Google owns the Android trademark, right? So there's some ways in which.
But that's true for anything in open source.
Right.
That's true as well. So I guess that's kind of a non-issue.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
They make this paraphrase from Henry Ford's book on the Model T where they say anyone can have an Android in their own color as long as it's black. And so basically they're saying you can use Android as long as
Okay, so the question is, why is Bill Gurley
hardware?
Yeah,
it doesn't happen. So,
but why
it
is
depends
Bill
on what
Gurley
you wanted to
retweeting
do.
this?
I mean, that's part of that is the problem with trying to build an actual phone. Let's say that you just wanted to build a tablet, kind of like the first version of the iPad. It just had Wi-Fi, and you want to build it on Android. Is there anything that would stop you from doing that? You don't need to call it Android in the name. It doesn't need to talk to a particular cell carrier. If it's just as far as I'm concerned, the system is open because you can do that, and I think people have built devices using Android.
Yeah.
In fact,
there's plenty of mods out there.
Well, it's like that tablet I was talking about. They took Android and totally modified the code and then stuck it into a device that looks suspiciously like an iPad, and now they're selling that in Asia for really cheap. I think it was $130. Nothing. And they're just but you can do that. You just don't have to say.
Well, the point is that someone could do
device.
something similar in the U.S. and it could be perfectly legal. I think the point is not building knockoffs, but you could create a really interesting product. You could power the whole thing with Android. So the Android operating system is open, but it's true that not everything in any particular phone is necessarily open. They're both true.
So here's some of the points that the author of this article, whose name is Andreas Constantinou, I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly. Apologies. There'll be a link on the site. So anyway, basically one of the things he says is that the Android roadmap is private. The visibility offered into Android's roadmap is pathetic. So basically he's saying that the roadmap should be open. Everyone should be able to debate it and see it. People who make Android devices must sign an anti-fragmentation agreement, which I think is good. I'm always screaming about fragmentation.
I don't think that just seems like a bad idea to not have something like that.
But what do you mean by a must? They must if they want to get certain things in return, not if they want to build a device. They can go on their own, or if they want to be part of the community, if they want it to be Google branded, they have to agree to a lot more things than that. But they don't have to do any of those things.
Yeah, I guess none of this.
This screams evil to me.
Nothing. I mean, this is a closed review process. The code reviewers all work for Google, so Google is the only authority which can accept or reject a code submission from the community. Again, you have to control the fragment. Yeah, you have to control the fragmentation somehow anyway. So, none of this really. I don't know. I'm not sure why.
I get why they're basically saying that it's the most closed open OS. But
if they didn't do that, there would
it would be chaos. Yeah, it would be anarchy, and that you cannot have that in the sense of especially a device.
Yeah.
Like if you're using it to develop, like you said, a device that you're kind of using, you're making it and it's powered by Android. That's fine, but when you're doing something that has updates over-the-air updates that need to be fairly uniform. You know, and especially with different carriers and different handsets, you have to have some kind of structure. And if that makes it the most closed OS, open source OS, then fine.
Here's I think what the real test is, though. The real test is if Google turned evil tomorrow and I quit, and but a bunch of current Android players, or not current players, but a bunch of people who had access to the resources and the hardware and everything wanted to fork the system and keep building Android phones, but redo the parts that were not open. Could they do that? Yeah, they could.
Yeah, they could.
They could. They'd have to fill in a few gaps because they're not part of the Android system. They're things you need to make a phone work on various networks and for certain hardware pieces. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean...
And Google's trying to prevent that from happening, but at the same time, I mean, I think that's the whole key with open source. It's possible for someone to fork. Then you want to discourage people from ever doing that.
That's an interesting comment. It's, they have to control the platform as it is currently growing so fast. And that when the core system's complete, I think that it'll open up more. Like Mike Full on our...
I think that's true. I mean, once it's easier to... you know, make your own distribution or whatever. When we eventually get to that point, then people will do it.
Yeah.
But until then, there's so much knowledge required to be able to do that successfully that it's not worth it for developers to try.
Yeah.
And I think, like we talked about last week, how they were saying, like, finally Android the fragmentation was going to start slowing down in terms of all their updates and everything. And I think as we start seeing it stabilize, it'll get better.
Google's realized it's a problem.
Yeah. It's definitely the wild, wild west right now in terms of, well, it's sort of getting better. We're sort of hitting the industrial revolution at this point, but it's like definitely it's just crazy. You can't monitor chaos.
Yeah.
So you have to have some kind of structure. But all right, Dominic, let's talk about Ringdroid. Let's go to App of the Week. So Ringdroid is our App of the Week this week, and Dominic has been kind enough to not only come on the show this week and talk about Android in general with us, but to also show off what Ringdroid does. And basically, for those of you who are uninitiated, it will record and edit sounds and also create ringtones for your phone directly in the handset, which is just super sweet. Like, that's so cool, and I can't think of anywhere else where you can do that. Like, usually you have to go online and you edit everything, and then you send it to your phone.
Or pay 99 cents or more and download them right on the phone. All right, well, let's start with a quick demo then for people who haven't seen it. It's on the market and it is free, so you can just stop the podcast right now and go download it if you want. So I'm just...
Go to the Android cam.
All right,
I'm sure you're in the cam there.
Yeah, and you can see, got a little bit...
Okay, I'll move it down there. Hopefully everyone can see
Perfect.
that. So here's the main Ringdroid screen. Starts off just by showing you all of your music. And
now it just comes with all this when I first download it.
Yeah, no, wouldn't that be great? No, this shows whatever music is already on your phone. So if you have a stock phone, maybe you'll see a few ringtones that came with the phone. Some phones with different carriers are loaded with a little bit of sample music.
Okay.
You might have nothing. So what you should do is just plug your phone in via your USB cable and just copy everything. And there are a couple of programs that are good for that. Help me out. I'm trying to think of the name of the DVD John's program. I'll think of it in a second. But anyway, you can seriously just copy all of your MP3s and AAC files just directly onto your phone, and then they'll show up here. They'll show up in the music player, and almost everything almost all like music formats are supported here, and then you can just pick a song that you want to make a ringtone out of. So let's pick Carlos Santana's "Smooth" here. And pop this up into Ringdroid. And I might rotate it here for a little better experience here. And so then this brings up a little waveform editor. And really all we're going to do is just clip the song. We just want to pick the start and end point to make a good ringtone out of this. So we could just pick right from the start here. And so that could definitely be a good ringtone. Or I'm just going to show you how you might skip through the song and try to find an interesting part. So you can just grab the little slider here and pick the part of the song you want. And I know that the part I'm thinking of is a little bit farther along, so I'm going to move there and then hit play. Okay, that's kind of the part I thought would be a good ringtone. So I'm going to move over there and then zoom in a little bit. Now, if you're not used to looking at audio waveforms, this might be a little bit unfamiliar. But as you zoom in, you can start to see.
Basically, generally tracks when the beat, you see the spikes where the beat is.
You can see when it's a little louder, softer. So I'm going to try to find sort of the beginning of that phrase. I'm a little closer now. Let's see how close I am. Zoom in anymore.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty good. I'm going to back up and get this downbeat here. See how that sounds. That sounds good. Okay, that's a good start. Now let's see how long I want this to go. That's pretty good. I want it to go a little bit longer, so let's extend this.
You got that because it's so smooth.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's the best part.
And
then I'll show you a little trick here. There's a little help screen that'll tell you some of these things, but instead of hitting play, I can just tap in the middle, and it'll start playing from right there. Okay, now I don't want to get quite all of that, so I want to go right to about there. Let's see that. That's pretty good. Let's just make that the ringtone.
Good enough
so I'm going to hit the save button here, and you can choose then to save this. You can make it a ringtone, alarm, or a notification, or just save it as a new music clip.
What is the difference between those?
The difference is where it's going to show up on the phone. If you mark it as an alarm, then when you go to any of the alarm programs and you're going to pick an alarm, it'll show up in that list.
Is that just where it stores it on the phone, or is it actually a file type?
It's like a metadata tag.
Okay.
But there's also sort of a unofficial standard for where to stick it on the SD card that Ringdroid also uses. So you can drop things into an alarms directory, and then that'll automatically be tagged that way.
That's so cool.
So once you've done one or two from Ringdroid, then you can open up your SD card on your computer, and you'll see the directory structure. So if you have a whole bunch of MP3s that are already set up as ringtones, now you know where to put them. But anyway, let's go ahead and pick ringtone there and hit save. And then it gives us some other options here. So we can make this our default ringtone, or we can assign it to a contact. And so assigning to a contact is pretty cool here. And it's actually going to pick. I picked some.
What do you got? Steve Jobs on your Android device.
Let's call Barack Obama.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's on there.
I put some fake contacts on here just to protect the innocent.
Except for me, I'm not fake.
So let's make this your new ringtone.
I am smooth. That is true.
And so it's just easy as that, and then the program exits, and that's set as the ringtone. And if you go back into Ringdroid, then if you scroll down here, you'll see that now next to smooth, there's that new ringtone that we just saved. And so you can actually open it again if you wanted to edit that one further, or you go back to the original clip if you wanted to assign that to someone else. Now, of course, you can already assign ringtones to a contact or make your default ringtone using the settings. So you can just go into contacts. In fact, if you don't know, I'll show you in a second here, because it's a little harder to find, I think. But Ringdroid will let you just delete a ringtone. So if we decided that the edit didn't come out just right, I can just long press on this ringtone and just delete it. It'll confirm that. And so that's the basic idea. So once you've created one, if you wanted to assign it to more people, I can go here to a particular contact.
You got
a watch it
there.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Go to a particular contact like that, and then you have to actually hit options. So from options, you can go to the ringtone list, and this is where you choose ringtones for individual contacts. And so anything that you save with Ringdroid is just going to show up in that list.
Very, very cool. And so why is Ringdroid possible on Android? Is it possible to build Ringdroid on another platform?
It's a good question. And so one of the things that I was excited about when I first got the Android SDK was sort of seeing what's possible with Android that isn't possible with other platforms. As a developer, I mean, this is kind of fun, but I work at Google. I have a main job, I have main tasks. This is just something I wanted to do on the side for fun, to see sort of what's interesting and what's possible. And I had done some stuff with audio before, but really you could do a lot of this on other phone platforms. You could do the waveform editing and the sound and all of that, but there isn't another mobile platform that actually has the APIs to set something as a ringtone and to assign it to a contact and to things like, and just to access your whole music library and all of the metadata.
In other words,
sort
Apple
of integrate
won't
the
let you
whole
do it.
thing. Right now, there isn't a way on. There's no API on the iPhone that'll let you create a ringtone and save it directly on the device.
Because they want to
You
keep
can do it with
everything locked up.
iTunes. So there's plenty of other ways to create free ringtones,
But not
on the
fly.
device.
Right,
Yeah.
on the fly on the device.
That does make a big difference.
So
Can you record your own ringtones?
yes, so there is a record button. You can also use any of the other sound recorder applications out there.
Very
There's
cool.
there are a few that have some nice features, but right within Ringdroid, there's a little link. You can just record something there and then trim it, and
Cool.
yeah.
Very nice. Do you have any questions? I always feel like I monopolize our apps of the
Right, I
week.
got my
I have all these
questions in.
questions. So.
Yeah, no, I actually played around with it beforehand. It's really nice.
Are there other applications that like use Ringdroid within it, or that
Yeah,
have?
so I'm just aware of a couple. Like there's a soundboard application that lets you create just a fun soundboard. Just press different parts of the screen and have it play sounds. And one of the things that they did to help people get sounds is they let you just tap on the screen and have it open Ringdroid directly as a way
very
to edit
cool.
it. And that's another thing I think that's really cool about the platform is that on Android, instead of sort of every app being separate, like every part of the operating system is pluggable. Like you can replace the home app, you can replace the phone, you can replace just about every aspect of the system. But similarly, that means that if that any application that the term for developers raises an intent to do something like to edit a sound, Ringdroid can respond and say, yeah, I can edit the sound, and then return that sound to that application. And so presumably other people could write similar applications, or if anyone has an application that needs someone to pick a sound. It's the same way as right now when you're in an app. You might see there's a lot more examples of this where you're in something where you need to pick a picture. And if you've installed more than one camera app or more than one gallery app or something like that, you might see a choice of several.
Right.
Very cool.
Let me ask you, I actually have a question.
Go ahead.
How many downloads have you had with this?
It's over 1 million.
So, and how long has it been out? About?
It's a while, well over a year, and I've continued to add features.
And do you have much in the way of competition, or are you pretty much big man on big?
I was
man
gonna say
on
you're
Android?
just basically like
So
"Oh, this shit." Like,
there are
I'm
a couple
the
of
only-
apps actually. So Ringdroid is released as open source. I'm not making any money off this, and because I'm a Google employee, that's pretty much the route that they want people to go. This is just sort of a fun project I'm doing at Google and on the side.
Right.
And so a couple of people have taken Ringdroid code and integrated it into other sort of ringtone-like applications.
Yep.
But for the most part, I don't think there's anything else really similar. I think it's good enough that no one's tried to compete with it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it on the side, so I'm not really moving as quickly as I'd like if I could work on this full time.
Right,
But
right.
I'm still hacking at it on the side. So I added a feature where you can opt in to send anonymous information about like the songs that you're creating, and so I've started collecting that data. And once I've gotten to finishing that code and open sourcing that, so everyone can see I'm not doing evil with it, I'm going to put up a website where people can see sort of what people are doing with Ringdroid, and it's
Very
fun to see.
cool.
And so far, it's collected. Just out of the ones that have been collected, almost 3 million ringtones have been created.
Wow.
So that probably means there are more from people who
Lot
didn't
more
opt in.
opt-out,
So
right.
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And just think that's at least $3 million that was not spent on buying commercial ringtones, which I think is great because, I mean, I'm glad people made a little money at it, but it's really ridiculous that people are paying for ringtones if they already own the songs.
When you can buy an app for $1, or you can buy 30 seconds of music for $1, like that doesn't
Yeah,
compute
it makes
with
any
me. I'm
sense.
like, no,
Yeah.
no.
Well,
no.
also, I mean, if you can go onto the Amazon MP3 store, which I think is awesome on Android, just to be able to buy songs right on the phone. But if you've already paid for the song, why should you have to pay again for the ringtone?
Yeah.
You pay $1 for the song, and then you pay another $1 for a
Yeah.
30-second clip.
Yeah, that
that
makes
seems
no
silly.
sense.
Yeah. And fair use. We're all about the First Amendment and the
That's
Fair
right.
Use Act.
I encourage you to buy your music first,
Yeah.
but then
Buy your music
copy it
and
onto
then-
all your devices.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity, is there anything in development that you want to talk about in terms of like cool features that you'd like to see Ringdroid have, or that you want to develop for it? Is there anything when we start seeing 4G come out? Is there anything that you like? Are you maybe considering doing something along the lines of like a movie editing or like a streaming? Like somebody could pick their favorite clip out of This Week in Android and show it to their friends.
That'd be cool. So to get really technical, what Ringdroid actually does in order to display the waveform and to be able to edit the sounds, it has to kind of really dig into the file formats, and there actually aren't APIs to do all of that. So I wrote my own code just to read the MP3 and AAC file formats in
Wow.
order to do that. It's I mean, this is something I've done before,
done it before
so
with
I
Audacity,
have the
so you know
experience
how
with
to do it.
Audacity. I wasn't starting from scratch there, but I wrote new code just for Ringdroid just to do that. And with sound file formats, it's not that daunting once you sort of get past how the file formats work, and it's really just trimming the files. And luckily, most audio file formats are not that hard to just trim out a piece and turn that into another valid audio file.
Okay.
With video, that would be a lot harder. Not impossible, but it'd be quite a bit more challenging. And I don't have the experience with video, so
see.
I tell you, I will not be the one doing it with video. But
it could happen.
it could happen. I
happen.
don't see any reason why that couldn't happen. I think that'd be a really cool app. And I'd love to talk to any developers who are interested in doing something like that. The one thing that I can see Ringdroid happen, I already told you about sort of collecting some statistics and getting some interesting buzz about what people are doing with it. The other thing I want to do is just improve the workflow. The workflow right now, I think it works really well for creating a single ringtone, but if you want to assign ringtones to your 20 closest friends, if you want to mix them
see.
up every week, if you want to change a whole bunch or things like that, there's really no workflow for that, and I think that's
Grouping and-
that's sort of the next area where it could go. It should be
that's cool.
It should be a good app if you want to manage a bunch of ringtones and do
Like if
fun
I want
things
to
with
make
them.
Dead End Friends by Them Crooked Vultures my ringtone for like my closest like group of friends, then that's what I would go with. That's really cool. I like that. I would have never thought of that as an option to have. Like I would never ask for that. Like I wouldn't be like, you know what I want to do? I want to set 20 of my friends to have the same ringtone. I would never think of that. But now that you mention it, that's actually a really good idea, and I would use that functionality. So,
There you go.
is there anything you want to talk about? Anything else about Ringdroid?
No, think you covered it. That's great.
All right, all
I'm
right.
very happy to be here and show it off. Thanks for having me on.
I'm really, God, if you ever want to come back and just talk about Android with us, like, you are so welcome, and we love having you here. So thank you for being on the show with us.
Great, thanks.
Okay, last thing I want to talk about, because it's going to take like 30 seconds. I know we got to close the show. We're at the end. Put up my screen. I need those. These are toys.
those?
They're little androids in
Android
blind
toys.
boxes. They're because like, have you ever seen blind boxes at comic stores? So like, you go in and there's this little setup like that, and you pick out a box and you don't know what you're getting in it. You could get any one of these little Android toys.
Oh, okay.
And I saw these and I need them. So if anyone knows where to buy them in the Los Angeles area, the LA metropolitan area, please let me know, and or buy them for me and send them COD to Mahalo, because I will pay for them, because I love them and I think we need some on the desk.
I agree.
Like, we need to have some Android
Cloud computing's
toys
got some toys. We need some toys on our stretch.
on the desk. Like, it
agree.
needs to happen. So I saw those and I thought they were literally the most adorable things I've ever seen in my life. And besides my dogs. And so I need them. Like, I have to have them around. So that's the end of that. But all right, it's time to close out the show. We're done. Again, Dominic Mazzoni, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. We all do. We really, really loved having you on.
Korean droid commercial.
And oh God, that's right, the Korean droid commercials. No, I don't think we have time. We'll do it next week.
Do it next week.
It's not timely. It doesn't we don't have to show it this week.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, we've got thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. And you're more than welcome anytime. You can find Ringdroid on the Android marketplace, or you can go to ringdroid.com and it will take you to the code site. So, and then as always, Mark, and Jeff.
Always happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And you can find Mark and Jeff on Twitter at Mark Jeffrey and at Jeff Emmons. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at Android Ashley. Thank you to all of our viewers out there on Ustream, Justin TV, on our website, on every
We're
kind
expanding.
of... Yeah, we are expanding.
Every week we're adding someone new.
Every week, more people. So thanks for coming.
And thisweekend.com as well.
And thisweekend.com. And you can also see our other This Weekend shows on thisweekend.com.
Do we have other shows?
We do. We do have
Amazing.
other shows. We have
Tell us
This
about
Weekend
those.
iPad, which is our new show
right.
with you and Jason Kalkanis,
Yep, just started
showing
this
off
week.
your fancy
I know.
iPads.
Jeff, you don't want to be part of that one?
They don't want me on that show. Trust me.
Jeff is the devil's advocate on This
Yeah.
Weekend iPad.
Somebody's got
We should have one on the show
The
just
voice
for
of
entertainment.
dissent. You should
I'll
have
just
a
stand
little
there and look
section.
stern.
Be angry. Yeah, Jeff just stands in the corner and goes.
Yeah. Nope.
But yeah, we have This Week in iPad, which is new this week. And we also have This Week in Cloud Computing with Amanda Coulong, which is super awesome. Cloud computing becoming a huge part
Yeah, it's
of
doing really- that
your
show's doing
user
really well.
experience. And we also have This Week in Venture Capital, which a lot of people really like that. I like
that's-
really
a lot of
cool.
people want to know how to raise money.
Yeah, hey, if you're interested in raising money, that is the show to watch. If you're interested in startups, watch This Week in Startups. If you're interested in Twitter, we have This Week in Twitter. We have This Week in YouTube. We have This Week in we have.
And don't
This
forget about
Weekend.
Kevin Pollak.
I know, and we have the Streamy
Award-winning Kevin Pollak's chat show.
Kevin Pollak's chat show on Sundays, and he's had some just incredible guests.
We had the Fond on.
The Fonz was on the show. So please,
Always somebody
go
good.
to thisweekend.com, check it out, because we've got a lot of really cool shows with some really good conversations about everything. So, but other than that, we're done. We will not keep you hostage anymore. And I'm Ashley Esqueda, Mark Jeffrey, Jeff Ammons, Dominic Mazzoni. Thank you so much for coming in studio. And this has been This Week in Android.